You want to turn this into a rally? That's for parliamentarians. Thank you very much for inviting me to be the guest of honor. I wonder why. Nepotism. Well, this is a celebration. We don't want to spoil it too much. So I have to acknowledge everybody here. A young MP, all of you activists. I see Ties Munyale. I also have to acknowledge visitors from Cape Town, my old comrade Patrick Bond, mon patron, Claude Abemba. I'm so glad you're here. Because Claude and Farai have been working together for a long time. So when I saw the list of participants, I saw Claude's name not there, so what's going on? So some years ago, Farai and Claude had a very wonderful meeting at Sapes. They brought together parliamentarians from the region and helped to highlight the problem that I wish to highlight tonight in our Baronspur celebration. This is to remind us of where this comes from, this resource curse, which has shaped the political economy of our world, of our globe. We should not forget the extent to which our globe is dislocated as a basis of what we are calling the struggle now. My old man, Sami Amin, I don't know if you know him, he said once that 1492, what happened in 1492? Columbus, what did he do? He discovered America. Sami Amin said 1492 was the discovery of the Americas by Columbus. And today the Americans, I saw my sister colleague from the US, where is she? Yeah. They celebrate Columbus Day. And Sami Amin says Columbus Day was the beginning of the nightmare for the indigenous people, for the rest of the world, what became the second, the third, and even fourth worlds. So I mention this because I think we often forget that that which looks normal is highly abnormal. Especially when you hear people like Trump, who is also an immigrant. America, the US, North America is made up of immigrants, including Columbus himself. They were immigrants. And then you hear someone else calling others immigrants. We have forgotten that the dominions of Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and almost the Union of South Africa, and almost the Federation of Region Nyasaland, were dominions born out of the dispossession of others. This is very important. Dispossession of others on the basis of resources, primarily. And I think that our young activists need to remember this, especially since we are, as someone did say, that we need to be internationalist, global in our perspective. And because the battle has to be global, ultimately. We need to link others across Latin America, Asia, and even Europe itself and North America to understand this battle for resources. So, European expansionism is the basis, the foundations of our pathology, the basis of our political economy today. And it also explains the way human beings are commodified. What my brother Walter Rodney spoke about in How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. the transatlantic slave trade, where human beings were taken across. And today, when you hear of Black Lives Matter, we are reminded poignantly that that human factor, that piece of Africa that is some 250 million Africans outside Africa now, 250. I just come from the Pan-African Movement meeting in Kampala. We're having the 8th Pan-African Congress in 2024. To remind ourselves, and recently there was a meeting in Accra where our colleagues held a meeting on reparations for slavery. There will be never enough reparations for that. And coming back closer home, and much more relevant to the discussion today. In 1858, a man called Cecil Rhodes, you know him? Our country was called Rhodesia once, after him. The arch-imperialist. And I want to quote from him because I always quote this in such gatherings, especially when we're discussing resource management. It says, it's in 1858, I quote, "I was in the East End of London, a working class quarter, yesterday, and attended a meeting of the unemployed. I listened to the wild speeches, which were just a cry for bread, bread. And on my way home, I pondered over the scene, and I became more than ever convinced of the importance of imperialism. My cherished idea is the solution of the social problem. That is, in order to save the 40 million inhabitants of the United Kingdom from a bloody civil war, we colonial statesmen must acquire new lands to settle the surplus population, to provide new markets for the goods produced in the factories and mines. The empire, as I have always said, is a bread and butter question. If you want to avoid civil war, you must become imperialists, end of quote. This is what shaped the political economy of what we call Southern Africa today. A region in which the exploitation of the resources, natural resources, has had little or nothing to do with the indigenous people. It produced Johannesburg in a country where they have the cheek to call others foreigners. Have you heard of that before? Can you imagine a South Africa without foreigners? People who have been working in the mines for the last 150 years. How can you describe South Africa as some kind of organic country? Or any of our countries for that matter. Nonsense. So, when we come home now, I don't disappoint my good MP. My good MP almost told us everything is normal here. Nothing is normal. Nothing is normal. What Rhodes spoke about, the idea that you need raw materials to feed the factories at home to avoid civil war. You need markets in the colonies to sell your finished goods. It's still happening today. That's a national political economy. The only difference is this, that others have joined them. The Chinese are part and parcel of the same. We want to call them all weather friends. Well and good. The point is that for all process of extraction, the extraction industries are based. Last year I was on a panel discussion with on the anniversary of the Chinese Communist Party. And I caused silence in the discussion because I asked my Chinese friends, why, if you want to turn upside down the imperialist model of extracting resources and taking the raw materials out, why don't you come and put up factories in our countries in partnership? Instead of taking cobalt, here in this country, chrome has been caught at the border, going out. 60% of our gold goes out every year, 60%, through South Africa and Dubai. We should earn at least 14 billion a year from minerals alone. 7 billion from gold, last year 3.5 only. There is this story of the diamonds, 15 billion. It's not a myth. I heard someone saying it's a myth. It's not nonsense. Between 2006 and 2016, 15 billion or more went out of the country. And my friend Peter Nyang'o came to give a talk at SAPES in 2016. He said, Ibbo, where are the cranes? What cranes? He says in Nairobi thrived from the piracy. The pirates, they only invested the money in Nairobi and Mombasa. And if you go there now, they're thriving. Here, there is no investment, there are no cranes. I think there's one at Makandiwa's. But there are no cranes, there's nothing going on here. I was in East Africa a few weeks ago. Not to mention Zambia next door. Zambia is 30 years ahead of us. I was in Tanzania, where I used to be as an exile. 40 years ahead of us. Kenya had 69 billion last year from exports. The money is all in the country, or at least most of it. And those that are stolen by the comprador bourgeoisie, which is a big one in Kenya, including the president himself, they invest at home, most of it. Zimbabwe exports last year $9.7 billion. Where is it? Irupupi.
Yeah.
Is there any evidence of it here? And this is why, one day, soon, we have to account for that loot outside the country. They estimate that the amount of loot outside the country is more than the national debt. Yes. We have to get it back. We cannot continue this hemorrhaging of our resources. And it's so pertinent because of the kind of revenues that you should be getting from minerals alone, we should have in the best of highways. You can't drive on a highway. Try driving to Kariba, Patrick. You've never seen such potholes. You can even hide, an ostrich can hide in the potholes. Disgrace. You can't drive between Bulawayo and Vic Falls. Highways in a country so rich, one of the richest countries in the world. This has to stop. It has to stop. And therefore, I don't know if you know, Farai, that in 2016, Anjin was thrown out. Do you know why?
Yeah.
Mugabe commissioned a report on the 15 billion diamonds. The report was still on Mugabe's desk when the coup took place in 2017. I think he kept it close to his desk because there were a number of people mentioned, some of them very close to him. But it is not a secret anymore that one of the reasons for the coup in 2017 was that report and the expulsion of Anjin. Anjin, and a lot of your leaders in this country, political and military, and sadly even civil servants, have been eating out of Anjin. The coup takes place, and one of my contemporaries is languishing in jail now, a scapegoat for the looting that has been going on. That report, my Honorable MP, please demand that it's made public, because it's there. It tells you the whole architecture of the corruption game, the whole architecture of how the 15 billion has gone out, where the main culprits, right from the top, into the military, into cronies. I heard that some joker the other day who was been driving a Lamborghini and they caught up with him, but I heard him boasting yesterday, take everything. I know what he meant, where there's enough money elsewhere, but the arrogance makes you scared. And when you hear so many cases of people arrested and let free, when the cases of criminality are so clear, this must stop. And therefore, organizations like CNRG are very important, but they cannot do that work alone. There's need for a broader national strategy that begins at the grassroots, right up to Parliament, because every Zimbabwean, and forget about this polarization between ZANU-PF and 3Cs or whatever, every Zimbabwean, including those in ZANU-PF, I know that many. I grew up with some of them, many of them. They're as concerned as you and I are what's going on. But there's no courage. Courage to link up across the party divide, across the country. And even in the opposition, there is no strategy. Where is the opposition when all this is going on? You ever hear them speak about it? Let alone an alternative policy to deal with natural resources. Have you heard any? Have you read any? We cannot have an opposition which cannot define an alternative. We need that. It's not enough to bark and shout about this and that. We need a systematic program of exposure of corruption, of addressing the basic political economy of our countries, and more important, of putting across to the population an alternative. We need that. Secondly, it's not enough to have a national strategy. There is need for a regional strategy. And that's why it's important that we have colleagues from South Africa, and we have that Claude Kamemba, who's running a very fantastic organization called Southern Africa Resource Watch. That's why I'm glad he's here, because it's very important that we have a regional strategy so that we don't allow these pillagers from across the world to play us one against the other. There should be one policy, a KPC on diamonds, a KPC on copper, KPC on every mineral, and in particular, an industrialization policy at the regional level, but also at the AU level. So, what are we doing, Farai, about ensuring, one, a national strategy, two, a regional, and three, a Pan-African strategy, which seeks to address the historical imbalance, the historical theft that leaves us, the majority of the human population, in dire poverty. and yet we're so rich in natural resources. How shall we stop this spiral, 500 years of it, of organized theft of our resources, when the price of our minerals is determined in London and New York, where people will never seen a mine in their lives? When will we stop? Thank you.